episode 75 of This and That and What the Fuck Else. And in this episode I'm going to talk about some stuff of the Donbass, energy problems, the EU, global reset, a global revolution, and then I've got some stuff on the green movement and NATO. But before I start, I just want to make something clear. I've got a guy that makes all sorts of comments on my channel, and many of his comments are reflecting his ignorance. But he's also one of those guys that they ask questions, but they only want answers that confirms their opinion, not something else. And he made a remark about the Russian soldiers, and he said that this mobilized soldiers is only cannon fodder. Now I would like to give him a memory refresher. He has obviously got no clue of how the Russian military operates and how the Russian military is structured. But it's very much along the same lines like the old South African Defence Force was structured. There's a core of what we call the permanent force, which are basically professional soldiers. They form the backbone of the Russian forces. On the best of them are in their paratroopers and those guys, special forces. And then there's a yearly conscription that runs twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. And initially the Russian soldiers that were conscripted, the civilians that were conscripted, just as we had in South Africa, they served a term of 2 years. That was changed and it went to 18 months and then it was reduced to 1 year. And that reduction of the conscription service was in hand with the growth of the permanent force, because after the Georgian fiasco, the Russians realized that they will have to tune up their army. And it was done. Now, another thing is that these conscripts, they go through basic training of 3 months and then they go through a 6-month training period in specialty treatment training, and then they are placed out into their units. Now in South Africa we did the same. You had 3 months basic training, and then after the basic training some of the guys opted for the special forces, the parabats or the motorbike squad or the, what was that other crowd, but they were doing their work on horseback, and some of the guys go into the recce's, and some of the guys were applying to be in specialty units. Some of them became chefs and some of them became IT guys and so forth. Same thing happens in Russia. But according to this guy, the conscripts will be cannon fodder. In South Africa we had our 3 months training, and after that 3 months you were going to the border. That was it. And for him to suggest that after a 3-month basic training you're just cannon fodder is pure ignorance. And I'm sitting and thinking a lot when I see his questions and remarks, whether I should answer or not. But I just had to give some details around this. The Russian military, whether he likes it or not, is a formidable force. And you cannot measure their performance in the Donbass from February until late August and then say they're struggling. They went in with specific instructions not to blow up civilian infrastructure and to avoid killing civilians. That was their mandate, and they stuck to it. Yeah, the Western press gave us a lot of stories about so-called war crimes from the Russian soldiers. But with all the evidence that is coming out now, it's quite clear that the main perpetrators of violence and atrocities and war crimes is the Ukraine military. They are the guys doing it. I listened to one journalist having an interview with a person, and this woman tells the guy that when the Ukrainian forces were driven out of their town by the Russians, those Ukrainian soldiers drove down the streets with their tanks and randomly shooting shots into homes and into apartment blocks on their way out of the city. But, okay, let that be as it may. There are people in this world, unfortunately, that are living under the illusion that the US and NATO is untouchable. The reality is, they are in deep shit and they know it. And when you listen to some of them talking, you can actually smell their fear. And there has been too many reports of the atrocities of the Ukrainian military. I'm not going to spend time on it now. Those guys are ruthless and they don't give a shit about the people, the civilians, or the infrastructure. They are just destroying as they go. Now I'm going to show you this first one, and you must look carefully at that picture. Look at those little houses there, and then I'm going to give you the background of those houses. Ukraine shells Russian orphan housing project in Russia. Now the orphan housing project, for those that don't know what it is, what they do in Russia is children that has been orphaned, they grow up in these orphanages, and when they reach the age of 18, that they must now go into the world, the Russian government give that orphan a house like this for free. It's his or hers, and they can start their lives. And they do it because it's tradition in Russia that the Russian parents will help their children to get their first house. These orphans don't have parents, so the Russian government give them that little starter house. Think about that. Just think about that. And here is in that same complex, this is the sports center that is in that complex, and it was also shelled by the Ukrainians. I cannot understand that a person with any morality can support Zelensky. I cannot understand. You're a Nazi supporter, and you must go and stand in front of the mirror and say it out loud and make peace with it. That is what you are, a Nazi supporter. And then we get to this. This is quite interesting. Moldova bans crypto mining amid energy crisis. The Moldovan authorities have decided to completely ban crypto mining in the country due to the energy crisis. The corresponding decision was made in a meeting with the Commission of Emergency Situations. The ban means that the country now prohibits crypto mining activities as well as the import of specialized equipment regardless of the location of the importing company. Yeah, I find that strange. We all know what important role crypto is currently playing in the world, and it's just getting more and more important. It's funny that the Moldovans have decided to cut themselves out of that. And then we get this from this bloody Ursula and crazy. The EU must not allow Russia to destroy the energy infrastructure of Ukraine. That same woman had nothing to say when Ukraine were bombing, and is still bombing, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I cannot tell you in words my disgust at the hypocritical way these elites are operating. And she stands there like a little Hitler. But she's the crown princess of the WEF. And then we get to this. This actually made me laugh. The United States tore Europe away from Russia and did so with the help of Europe itself. And now Macron accused the United States of quadrupling the markup on gas. Their energy prices are much lower domestically as they are producers. They pay 3 to 4 times less than we do. Moreover, they have large subsidies from government in some areas, up to 90%. This is not fair. These are double standards. Well, I've got news for you, Macron. You were warned about this. And the EU played along. Not that cabal in Brussels played along. Who in this world thought it was a clever plan for Europe to cut themselves off from their main energy source? Now they're suffering and struggling, and they're trying to justify their shit. Europe is doomed. Let me get to this. This is quite interesting. In a village near Mvuma, Zimbabwe's Midlands province, Chinese steel giant Tsingshan Holding Group is building a US $1 billion steel plant. It will use Zimbabwe's iron ore, chromium, coal, nickel and limestone reserves to produce iron and steel products and help Zimbabwe develop its value chain. Raw materials will be mined and processed locally, though its subsidiary Dinson Iron Steel. Tsingshan is building a steel plant that could turn Zimbabwe into one of Africa's major iron and steel producers. The plant will be built by 2023. The initial capacity will be 600,000 tons of steel per year. Production can double when the plant is running at full capacity. And I hope that these idiots in South Africa take note. We have been light years ahead of Zimbabwe in steel production. And what happened here? This useless ANC cadres allowed our steel industry to be destroyed. And then there's this. Countries like Russia, Iran and China are truly independent countries. To the US, that is a huge crime and must be punished. That is why they always try to find new excuses to wage proxy war, economic war, media war, etc. against us. And that is so much the truth. The US is fucked and they know it, but they don't want to admit it. Their days of being the global ruler is over, economically and militarily. But they don't want to accept that and adjust to their new role. Their new role of being a good neighbor in a global community. And then there's this, take note of it. China is teaching their kids quantum physics and calculus, while America is teaching our kids gender pronouns and how to twerk from a drag queen. This isn't going to end well. And that is the truth. I read an article a few weeks ago of how many million scientists and engineers qualify annually in China. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Putin. The West is insisting on a rules-based order. Where did that come from anyway? Who has ever seen these rules? Who agreed or approved them? This is just a lot of nonsense, utter deceit, double standards or even triple standards. And that is the truth. This West with their fucking rules-based shit. I mean, now they're bending the rules in the EU to make it possible for them to steal the Russian assets that they confiscated. That's what they're doing. These mongrels will pay. And we must thank God for a man like Putin that decided this shit must stop. This is interesting. Regulated crypto is more appealing. More investors view the surge in legal actions within the cryptocurrency industry as a positive, according to a new Bloomberg poll, which almost half respondents believing Bitcoin prices will stabilize between $17,000 and $25,000 until the end of 2022. Almost 60% of the 564 polled believe greater regulation will attract major professional investors that will in turn see a steady growth away from alarming dips this year. And just to put some shed a little bit of light on what is going on. The problem that is in the crypto world is that there is a hell of a lot of exchanges that jumps up overnight and they're unregulated. And then investors lose a lot of their crypto. I lost some crypto in a fuck up like that where the exchange collapsed. 34% of Australians support attacking the Solomon Islands if it allows a Chinese military base. These are the same people who think that Ukraine can join NATO and Russia should keep quiet. Western hypocrisy is deep-rooted. And I've got news for those 34% Australians. They will be blown off the map in one day. Where the fuck is this coming from? Australia threatening China. Can you believe it? And then we get to the green stuff. Electric cars in Germany may fall victim to the energy crisis. Internal combustion engines must now be more economical than might now be more economical than electric ones. The current energy crisis in Europe could put the brakes on electric mobility in Germany and make e-vehicles unattractive to potential customers. There's also a shortage of public charging stations across Germany. Well, slowly but surely reality is hitting them. There's just a little bit more on that same topic. You can stop the video and look at that and read it if you want to. And then we get to this. The greatest blunder in human history. There is not enough lithium cobalt in the world to replace EV batteries every 10 years. Net zero is impossible. Trillions wasted on useless renewable technology from rare earths and cheap oil, gas, coal energy destroyed. And that is so true. But who is going to suffer most? The citizens of the so-called West. Farmers quit their fields and hit the streets of New Zealand cities Thursday in a countrywide protest against plans to tax greenhouse emissions from farm animals. If this wasn't so crazy, I would have ignored it. But can you imagine? The fucking New Zealand government now want to tax farmers on cow farts. Where has the world gone? And then we get to this. New York's homeless went berserk after learning that the mayor had set up a huge hangar for illegals with couches, Xboxes and free food. And look at all those images. And you must keep in mind, it is part of the WEF plan to take over America. Flood America with immigrants. That's why the immigrants are getting all these special treatments and so. They are WEF soldiers. Don't forget it. Never forget it. Just remember, I'm warning you. Those immigrants are WEF soldiers. Don't fool yourself. The plan is, and it is in documentation at the UN, that people have seen. The plan is to push 100 million immigrants into America. Think about it. And then we get to this. Elite US unit ready to fight in Ukraine. The US Army 101st Airborne Division would not hesitate to enter Ukraine should a conflict break out between Russia and NATO. The elite division is currently conducting war games in Romania, close to the NATO country's border with Ukraine. Now I've got news. I don't doubt that these guys are good. But I've got news for them. There's 4,700 of them, and they want to take on Russia. The reality is, America hasn't fought a ground war since World War II. They have fought wars against people that were running barefoot in the sand with 100-year-old AK-47s, and they think they were warring them. And the ridiculous part of it, they fucking lost. They lost in Afghanistan, they lost in Iraq, they are losing in Syria, they lost in Vietnam, everywhere. But no, they keep on with their shit. And then you must listen to this and then just think. International rules-based order. Madeleine Albright, the price is worth it. About 500,000 Iraqi children that lost their lives in Iraq. How the fuck does the world tolerate this type of arrogance? These people are evil. They are fucking evil. And then this Russian guy tweeted this. Yanks and overestimating their shitty military again. I'm reminding you again, You just lost a 2-decades-long war against people without shoes who only fought with 70-year-old AKs. And that is the truth. And then he's got a picture at the bottom there of that fat soldier. And this is just a reminder of another NATO atrocity. 10 years ago, in 2011, Muammar Gaddafi, the deposed leader of Libya, fled Tripoli after the capital fell to NTC forces. He was soon captured by the rebels, beaten and sodomized with a bayonet, and then shot several times. This is what NATO did. They fucked Libya up. Can you think? Just try and imagine if Libya wasn't bombed. What country Libya would have been today. But that's the NATO way, American way. Bomb every fucking civilization and country back into the Stone Age. But the day of reckoning is speeding up. It's coming. And here is something to take note of. The crew of the large American aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush, which is in European waters, have declared their readiness to engage in combat with Russia, if necessary. Now, I've got news for that crew that are now so ready. Just one Kinshal missile. Just one. And that thing is down to the bottom of the sea. And here is the nightmare. The combined West have got no defense against that Kinshal missiles. Zero defense. All they can do on that boat is put their heads between their knees and kiss their asses goodbye. The days of big warships is over forever. Modern missile technology is making them floating coffins. Yeah, I'm angry today. And then I get to this what a fuck. And this what a fuck I can't say a lot about. You just have to look at that picture and read all that shit on that image and think about it. And then remind yourself of what just happened in England. A WEF governor has been installed in the UK. The UK is now the first official colony of the WEF with King Schwab in charge. Guys, the world better wake up. These people has got evil plans for us. Please hit the like, subscribe and share the thing. Thank you very much.